Welcome to Holistic Accountant Podcast, where we aim to showcase how adopting a holistic approach in accounting and tax maximizes value for clients. Beyond traditional tasks like preparing financial statements and tax returns, a holistic accountant focuses on offering advice that maximizes personal wealth on an after-tax basis. If you enjoy this episode, please consider leaving a rating and sharing it with those who might also benefit. And to ensure you stay updated, subscribe to our weekly email. The link is in the show notes. Okay, today, Mina and I would like to talk about fanatical discipline. Let's talk about something that has no relationship to business whatsoever as an analogy. You know, the function of your current health is really the decisions that you've made over the past 365 days. You know, the last year, it's not how you exercised yesterday or how you ate yesterday. It's really about the last 365 days. And those that have the discipline to eat well every day and exercise every day probably are maintaining a very healthy weight and also health. And business is no different. It's easy to eat well and exercise one day in a row or even 2 days in a row. The challenge is to do it every single day. Now, it's impossible. I don't do it. It's crazy. I'd rather just go out to a restaurant and drink nice wine. The point is well made, is that quite often you see people in business and, well, in fact, the quote by Jim Collins is the signature of mediocrity is terrible inconsistency. I'll say that again. The signature of mediocrity is terrible inconsistency. You know, sometimes if I'm doing some research and looking at websites of different businesses, they'll often have sort of a blog section on their website. And you can see that they got very excited about posting blogs, you know, for every week for a couple of months. And then there's a gap of 6 months or something like that. Or maybe they haven't posted any blogs since. Well, if you're not going to commit to doing something and doing it well and doing it regularly, then don't bother at all, is my viewpoint. Now, at ProSolution, I have written a weekly blog for more than a decade, and previous to that, it was a monthly blog. But every single Wednesday, without fail, no matter what's going on in my life, every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., I will send some sort of insight. Now, I won't dial it in, you know, I won't publish a nice recipe or republish an article that was in a newspaper or something like that. To my mind, it's got to be some original content, some original thought that is valuable to you to help you make better financial decisions. And so that's a challenge. I can tell you it's a challenge to do that every single week for more than a decade, because there's been times during that period of time where, you know, I haven't had the time to do that. But that's really where success comes from in business. It's doing those simple things, those simple tasks, but doing them consistently with discipline.
So what are characteristics of a fanatic discipline? And I'll start off with the first one, which Stuart already mentioned, is its consistency. Jim Collins mentions in Great by Choice that the companies that do 10 times better than their peers demonstrate a high degree of consistency in their actions and their decisions. You know, it's the weekly blog that Stuart mentioned that the owners sacrifice their time, their ability to manage their business and so forth to establish a method that would actually lead or create more business. They follow through on their commitments and remain aligned with their goals over time. A mentor once told me that you need to sort of set time in your calendar, you know, once a week or once a month or once a fortnight, but just commit to that time and for your business and your business development. So whether it be writing a blog or, you know, establishing what you need to do in the business to take it to that next level, it's the consistency that gets you there. And then you need to have a long-term focus. Organizations need to prioritize long-term success over short-term gains. And this might involve having difficult conversations with staff that they're not performing or making decisions that might not be very popular in the short term. You know, just recently we've had to implement, you know, software that would improve our systems and processes overall, but sometimes change isn't taken lightly. So, you know, making these long-term decisions is what takes your business again to that next level. And then accountability. You know, we have a saying within our business that when something goes wrong, don't blame the person, but blame the system. You know, as a business owner, you need to have accountability for what goes wrong in your business. And your staff also need to take accountability for what goes wrong and be involved in the process improvement. You know, it encourages everyone to have a sense of ownership and commitment within the team.
I think it's about establishing a culture of discipline, because you can have a team of, let's say, 10 people, and if the owner has that discipline to execute, it's actually not going to have a big impact on the business. Really, what needs to happen is all those 10 people in the business needs to have a culture of discipline, because one person just can't pull a whole business, a whole company in a particular direction if the other 9 aren't putting in their effort as well. Now, of course, the owner in a business always works harder than everyone else. That's a different concept. What we're really talking about is if you're going to undertake to do a certain task, or if you're going to undertake to follow a particular system, that you have the discipline to complete that task on a timely basis, or you've got the discipline to follow the system and produce the same quality work every single time that you do it. And so there's a few benefits of establishing this culture of discipline. I mean, the first one is obvious: sustained performance. A disciplined business that's able to execute on the key performance indicators every single day, week, month, and year is going to outgrow the business that doesn't have that discipline. As Jim Collins says, it's mediocre just to be completely inconsistent. The second one is resilience. And I know this very well from my own experience. If I go back to the blog, for instance, sometimes writing a blog for a period of time, you can see that it is creating a lot of value. Clients are talking about it, new clients are introduced to you, people are sharing the content. But then there's also times, perhaps when there's a lot of uncertainty, that the content doesn't have as greater impact. And so you might not get any feedback. Clients might not be talking about it at all. But that's kind of the point, that if you do these things, you do these tasks in a business, in some months they're going to work tremendously well. In others, they won't work so well. But it's the consistency of doing it on an ongoing basis. And the last benefit of having that culture of discipline is alignment and cohesion, that everyone in the team knows that if I say I'm going to do something, that I'm going to do it. And if I can't do it, if I can't execute on that original promise, then I'm going to come and talk to you and about that. Just means that we're all on the hook to execute on the tasks that are our responsibility. We're all on the hook to follow our processes, to deal with customers and clients in the same way that we've been taught to deal with. And it's that discipline to follow that process that is ultimately going to produce great results.
So how can you, as a small business, apply this culture of discipline? Stuart and I sort of came up with 11 ways, and we'll just reel them off quickly without going into too much detail, but it just gives you a bit of food for thought as to what you could sort of consider. The first one is define a clear core values and mission, and this sort of goes into our flywheel concept that we discussed last week as to why are you in business, what matters to you most in the business, establishing what your core values and mission is, and making sure that the people behind you, the people in your business represent these core values. And you need to articulate it well to your employees and to the community out there. Then number 2 is hire the right people. End of the day, you're not the face of your business at all times. Your people represent you and your brand. If you don't hire the right people who represent your company's cultures and values, then you've got a failing business. Develop a clear hiring process, whether it be establishing a relationship with a recruitment agency that understands your business and knows how you guys operate, to make sure that they get the right people that fit not only culturally, but also can perform at the level that you need. Number 3 is establish clear roles and responsibilities. Again, it comes down to your people. In a small business especially, employees wear many hats. They might be doing sort of tasks well below their pay grade and tasks well above their pay grade. But having clear roles and responsibilities for them, a position description as such, provides clarity around what they need to do and what they're sort of accountable for. Number 4, create a simple and structured process. Small businesses often operate with limited resources, and like I said, employees might need to wear multiple hats. So having, sort of processes that you can sort of automate or streamline. There's a lot of AI out there, a lot of tech out there. Try to establish what you can automate, what you can streamline, where you can sort of obtain some efficiencies. Number 5, encourage responsibility and ownership. So it's vital that each team member feels ownership of their work. Get them involved, make them proactive thinkers, empower them to make decisions and make them accountable for their outcomes, whether good or bad. And again, the bad doesn't necessarily mean, they're sacked, but establish why it's gone bad. What can you do as an owner to provide the necessary training or the systems or the tools to provide them or make them do better in their roles. And then number 6 is measure performance regularly. Without data or feedback, it's hard to know how your business is moving or if it's moving in the right direction. Yes, you can look at your P&L, but it doesn't really give you much data in terms of, or granular data as to who's performing, what products are performing, and so forth. Set clear measurable goals for both at the individual level and the team level, and regularly review these. Number 7, implement feedback loops. So, it's important that your structure isn't too rigid, because you need to adapt and improve, especially in our day and age where things are moving very quickly, industries are moving very quickly, competitors are coming up with new, like I call them, industry disruptors one way or another. So everyone's trying to compete with you. So it's important that you're not rigid so that you can adjust your processes and strategies over time.
Number 8 is to demonstrate strong leadership. So if you're not disciplined as a leader, as the owner of the business, or key figures in your business, really set the tone for the culture and set what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And I'm a really strong believer in this, that if you as the owner or the leader of that business can't do what you're asking your team to do, then of course they're not going to do it, and you probably shouldn't blame them for that. You need to be setting a really high standard, a really consistent standard, a disciplined standard, and then allow the team members to sort of rise up to that standard. So I think that's a really important one. Number 9 is really focusing on long-term growth, not quick wins. There's a great saying that short-term profit doesn't drive long-term value, and I'm certainly a strong believer in that. That means that sometimes you need to say no. For instance, if we approached by a prospective client, we don't think we're the right people to help them, saying no in the short run is going to cost us lost opportunity, I guess, in terms of revenue earned. But in the long run, it fits within our strategy. So really making sure that we're focusing on that short-term profit doesn't drive long-term value methodology. And number 10, prioritize customer relationships. So we all know in business, sometimes we've got to look after a customer or do something for a customer or client, and we look at it and we go, we're not going to make any money out of this. It's going to be a loss leader. It's going to take us a lot more time than we can ever charge for, or I now need to replace this product at my own cost, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, having the discipline around customer service, irrespective of the profit outcome. That's not to say irrespective of the profit outcome long term. I'm talking about these one-off sort of events that occur. But ultimately, if you've got a customer and you're going to keep that customer for the next 1, 5, 10 years, that's a very profitable customer. Then sometimes you've got to have the discipline to execute to make that customer happy, even though it might not put any additional profit on the table. In fact, it could be you could end up losing money. And lastly, number 11 is really having the discipline to embrace technology, embrace change. Now, not technology for technology's self, although I must say with a lot of these tools, it's really a case of just implementing them and trying them, but you don't have to get married to them. You can sack them as soon as you don't think that they're delivering the benefit. But I think trying these tools is really important for a business that's looking to innovate and grow, but certainly embracing technology and looking for ways to sort of improve the productivity of your team and your staff. So there you go. There's some ideas around creating more discipline in your business. And I would really just want to leave you with sort of one thing that you can walk away with from this podcast is the concept that success in business is just a whole bunch of very simple tasks completed consistently for a long period of time. And it's easy to say, it's extremely difficult to do. And that's why most businesses fail, because they fail to consistently deliver the same level of service or consistently market their business or consistently give positive and negative feedback to staff or consistently, measure productivity or financial outcomes. It's these sorts of steps. Again, they're not curing cancer. They're not, going to change anyone's life, but it's just the consistency around it. Okay, that's it for us for this week. Until next week, bye for now.